What is going on, everybody? Super excited for this one. Talking about a topic very close to my heart, very personal. I've struggled with alcoholism, different types of addiction for a lot of my life. It's absolutely destroyed some of the personal relationships that I've had, caused problems with work. It's just caused problems all the way around. So we're going to have a great panel tonight talking about it. And it's an absolute pleasure to have Chris and Ed joining me on this. And then we're going to have Zac from the Family Alpha joining in a little bit. So let's just go ahead and get started. Brief introduction, like who are you for people that may not know who you are?
Yeah, man, I'm Ed Latimore. I have my website at Latimore. I do a lot of writing there about all aspects of my life. One of the most important aspects is recovery and sobriety. Well, we call it addiction and sobriety on the site. I have a lot of articles there about people. My particular vices were pornography and alcohol, but I found that the mechanism that drives it beyond a physiological addiction are very similar. So I recommend everyone, come over and kind of read and take that stuff in. But yeah, overall, man, I'm just real happy to be lucky to make a living being myself. I used to fight for a living as a boxer. Now I don't, thank goodness, but that's because I finished school and I was going to school for physics, and the goal when I entered school was to get a real job, and then I figured out that I'm not too bad at this online writing thing and creating content, and so I have a good time with that. I play chess, I learn languages, and I have a good time, man. That's how we do it.
It's good stuff. Chris, how about yourself? Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'll try to give a short version. So I'm Chris Randall. The reason I'm here, I agree with you, Ed. The mechanism's the same. Doesn't really matter the drug. So I've had multiple different things I've struggled with. I went into the Air Force when I was in my mid-20s. I got married, got injured, got out, and they gave me painkillers. And then they gave, and then they also just gave me benzodiazepines. So I sort of started there. My father was an alcoholic, so the stage was set. But luckily, I'd gotten away from my father because my mother divorced him and married my stepfather, who's amazing. And he sort of fixed a lot of the problems, but not really a lot of the underlying issues because, they're set by the time you're 13. So my ex and I did not mesh well together. I didn't know why, but I knew I wasn't happy, and I would just sort of hide in drugs and alcohol, just sort of numb out. Whatever it was, if it was alcohol, opiates, benzos, GABAs, if I just took a ton of them, or even pornography, something like that, just video games, anything just to get away from life. So at some point I decided I didn't want to be on opiates anymore. I'd had enough and I just stopped, but I didn't really fix the problems. So I still struggled with drinking too much. And I ended up going to AA, and I don't go to AA now. I have a little different thing that I do, and I'm not sober, but I don't use all the time. But what it did do is it cleared my mind up enough to figure out I had some issues I need to work through. And because I had to, I went sober for a good bit of time. So since meeting Alex, I've actually I did a lot of work with the VA, and then I did a lot of work with Ryan Christensen on the hypnosis side. And I did other kinds of work as well. And I've sort of come full circle to where life is amazing right now. And I've learned a lot about how I use to cope with problems. And that's sort of what I wanted to get on to share, is sort of to acknowledge I do have a problem and then to sort of say anybody can beat it, because I'm not going to even lie. I love drugs. I love alcohol, but I have to really watch out because it can take over my life really quick if I don't have purpose in my life.
Right. No, it makes sense, Chris. And let's dive very deep into that, because you and I come from the camp of moderation versus pure sobriety. So let's dive into that, like down the line. I want to share a little bit about myself. I know when I spoke with Zac previously, I mentioned a little bit on the call some things that went on in my life. I ended up getting arrested. I got arrested on essentially a false DV charge that was very difficult to fight. And all of that could have been avoided if, and I know, Ed, you talk about this a lot, like stoicism, being very stoic when it comes to your emotions. And that was something that I missed there. And so I was rather loud, explosive, that caused it to be a problem when it shouldn't have been a problem. And because of that, it spiraled my life out of control. I ended up having to move home with my parents. And while being there, I just kind of devolved entirely. And alcohol became a very serious problem for me. I ended up going to multiple different alcohol counselors. I tried to figure out like what's wrong with me, instead of looking at, why am I doing these actions? What's causing these actions? And I think, at least from my perspective and what I've learned, is that if you identify the problems in your life and you deal with the stress in a proper way, then a lot of these addictive behaviors start to dwindle.
Which I think that goes into the mechanism that Ed, you were probably talking about.
Yeah, what I find when I talk to guys that are even thinking about dealing with stuff, and by dealing with stuff I mean putting down the bottle or they've got a drug issue, is you're never looking at an addict is an addict. Like I really believe, and I'm a harsh, very very harsh on general personal responsibility issues. So this has been very much a growth for me to really understand this, but I really stand by it. I think when you're looking at an addict, you're not looking at somebody who picked up a substance or a habit and drives to, and then just went to oblivion. You're looking at somebody who developed that as a coping mechanism, and that coping mechanism is maybe it worked at a time, but it was never good. It was never sustainable. It was a bad idea. You look at the situations and the lives that lead someone to even put them in a position to even discover drugs, then what the drugs do. I think one of the reasons the opiate crisis just hit people full on and unprepared is because for the first time in probably modern history, for the first time in a long time, people who seemingly had their shit together were being exposed to a crutch, and they were like, "Oh, it's a lot easier to stay hot and go do work and chase this." So and I always contrast, but I got a buddy, man. He smoked crack like 3 times and was like, "This is it. I'm done." Right? It just wasn't for him. Right? He comes from a together family, Right? Meanwhile, I know people get addicted to food, man. You watch, My 600-Pound Life. I used to make fun of that show like no other. I was harsh, and one day somebody said, a lot of the people on there, they eat themselves to that size because they're coping with a trauma, like a lot of sexual trauma as children, and they made themselves repulsive to keep somebody away from them. And then I went and dug deeper, and I was like, whoa! And I haven't said a thing. Now, I don't watch the show. I'm not like going to support the exploitation of it, but I don't say a negative thing about that situation. So to wrap that up, I think a lot of times what we're looking at somebody coping, and they chose something with the and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it be crack or working out. There's this line in Get Them to the Greek where he's like, I did yoga for you. I was trying to get them together. He goes, you did yoga 5 hours a day. You turn yoga into heroin, is what she said. Like anybody, anything can do it, but it just we have drugs are a unique beast from a physiological standpoint.
It's a very good point. And Ed, you dealt with this early, right? You started drinking pretty early.
Dude, what's crazy about my life, man? I didn't drink in high school. I think I had 1 beer in high school. I was on a recruiting trip for football. And I was like, oh, beer and girls, right? And I was, that was that. And then I was cool for a minute, and then I got into it, and then I got into it hard. And then in true addict fashion, I actually stopped for like 3 years, from 19 to 22. And then I picked it, went and just I mean, you want to talk about a waste. To talk about like close calls and danger zones. I tell people all the time, man, all the coin just landed. It landed on heads instead of tails. Man, I could easily still be in prison, at the very least, with a serious, record. But I guess relative to my age now, sure, I will say early, but I wasn't like a kid drinking or anything like that. I just got into it and didn't realize I had a bunch of issues that I was dealing with.
Makes sense. I wasn't sure. I was looking at your timeline when that was, because as I was reading back through what you had posted on your website, you stopped when you were going back to school, right?
Yeah. That was, I had a real. I had my life. Everyone has their come to Jesus moment, right? Whatever that is for you, and sometimes it ain't even Jesus, man. Sometimes it's the legal system. Sometimes Allah, man. Whoever it is, you have that moment where you're like, you go left, you go right. You probably shouldn't go left, but if you do, you got a choice right here, And I was, when the hell was that? My sobriety date is the December 23rd of 2013. And people, it's funny, man. People ask me all the time, like, "Yo, why don't you just wait till New Year?" And I'm like, "You gotta understand, man. Could have waited till New Year. You might not be talking to me right now, So it was a combination of things. It was a combination of four things, really. I just enlisted in the military, so I was going to be subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. I had just re-enrolled in school. I was like, I'm gonna try and get this right and start making my life right. My fighting career, I was a professional now, and I was like, I don't want to waste this opportunity. I really kind of felt lucky to be there because I wasn't the most. I mean, I dedicated and trained my ass off, but alcohol was like burning the candle at both ends, man. Like you trying to fit your schedule around. I remember I used to do this. I would try and fit my training schedule around the happy hours and the bars and parties. Showed up one time. I showed up a few times to practice. Coming off of hangovers, or straight up like got a booze in at lunch, and it was an evening practice. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? Kind of thing. But I was like, let's take it seriously. And then I had just met. The woman is still around now, so I said there might be some real potential in this. So in that story you hear, man, I finally had something to like care about, and that's one of those things you don't realize that you cope with. I mean, you think you care, but do you really care? And then I thought about some issues that I always talked about myself, and I was like, this alcohol kind of creates this this life, this persona that brings this false attention, and I was like, I want real respect, and respect and attention look real similar if you kind of not used to both.
That's a really interesting point that you just said right there, and I started to think about myself. When I went to alcohol counselors, I would always go because it was a girl that I was dating, and the relationship was breaking down, and really what was going on was I didn't understand and respect myself, and I was trying to fix something. Where this girl was not right for me, but I wanted to make it work somehow.
Dude, that women are real interesting because I think in many ways women are like money in that they're not gonna change you. What they're gonna do is they're gonna reveal what's already present. And I am so fortunate that I whatever it was, some pattern erupt at some point was like, yo, this might be a real solid person for you to really do the right thing by not being asked. Because I knew, I knew that if I was drinking, that was not going to work. Right, like I just knew it, and so I made a choice. Right, it's not like she was ever like, you need to go get help. Thank goodness, never got to that. But that part of that is because I said at the moment, I said, okay, I'm gonna stop because I like you, And then it had none. She didn't, ask or persuade or anything. I just thought it was a good idea.
Awesome. Well, Zac, thank you so much for joining us.
That's a sharp suit, man.
Yeah, I'm working hard, man.
Looking good. Well, Zach, I don't know if you caught at the beginning. What we were initially started with was, basic introductions for, whoever doesn't know you, and then just a little bit about your story, like how you came to the point that this had to even be a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty quick and easy story. I came from a family where you drank when you were happy, you drank when you were sad, you drank for everything in between. I then joined the Navy, and that didn't make anything better. The culture there is wild. It really is what you see on TV. And I was just drinking and trying to outwork that. And in my head, I romanticized it. I'm like Hemingway. I'm that tortured soul. My booze. If you take that away, I'm not gonna have it. And then it's cool to be on here with Ed because I saw it with him. I'm like, man, that guy, he can hang out without drinking. He can create without drinking. I should probably do that because this is a really bad habit. And I started seeing it with my health. I was starting to gain weight. It's harder to work out, harder to have energy. It basically came down to the point where I realized I wanted to be my best. And I'm telling these other men to be their best. And yet I'm staying with this liquid poison, and I couldn't tell you why. And when I realized I didn't even know why I was drinking it, it didn't make me better. It didn't make me happier. It didn't make me relaxed. I really had to have that objective conversation with myself. And I was like, negative. And like I said, working with Ed, reading his book, just kind of picking his brain. And then Phil Foster. Those two dudes were kind of my inner, they're on both shoulders, but they're both the angels, One's like, here's how you stay sober and interesting. The other one's like, here's how you can make yourself optimized. And having those two guys really helped me help myself.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. I got to talk to Phil at some point. He seems like an absolutely phenomenal guy.
Yeah, he's great, man. Phil's got me on that trim down program, and I'm in shape. Like it's not like I'm out of shape, but we're working hard, and that's why I'm sitting here. I'm just drinking that protein, getting my. How hard you just can't appreciate how hard it is to get 250 grams of protein a day, man. It is, but it effing works. You follow the plan, it works. I'm leaning out, man. It's cool. I'm gonna be ripped by the summer. By the summer, there you go. Take it.
With Ed's point, there is a point to be made. When you start rolling, like sobriety was cool, but it didn't do anything for me. It kind of took an anchor off. I then kind of continued to shift gears, but it's so much easier to get that workout in early. It's so much easier for your body to burn that fat off when you're not drinking, however many grams of sugar or whatever it is, or you're tired, And another one, is it's interesting. Ed, you dropped something recently where you said you forget that doing 50 push-ups or whatever it was, running a 7 minute
mile. Because somebody was I know exactly who it was. It was Assad. I don't know how well you know him. But he was talking about how he's like, don't listen to what anyone on Twitter says. Clearing 200 pounds or any weight is significant, which is kind of true, right? But what I said, even squats, and then AJ with his fitness background came in and was like, what you forget being an athlete is like how not like it's a gulf of difference in the physical abilities between someone like you who's effectively, I mean, I'm retired from competitive fighting, but I'm still, I was still in there, sparring with Roy, getting him ready for his Tyson fight and everything. I'm still active, and another just regular person. And the point I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Doing something that like I take it for granted, drop down, do 50 push-ups, or go out and try and run a mile in like 6:37 minutes. It's like that doesn't seem particularly impressive to me. But I guess when you talk to normal people, most people can't just drop down and do 50. Most people can't run 6:30 cold. Like it's not. And I'm like, oh, that's like kind of the standard we had to live by for years, and it just stuck with me.
But that was the point. When I saw what you were saying, I related to. I was like, yeah, like that. We shouldn't praise that. That's not that difficult. But then I was thinking, I immediately, man. Every Friday, I'll drop a tweet or I'll drop a message saying, hey, make this the weekend you go sober, or make this the weekend you just only go the weekend without booze. And to some people, they're like, there's no way.
That's terrifying.
Because it's my weekend. It's my weekend. It's the time to have fun because I hate my job 5 days a week. I got to go out and have fun.
But think about it, that's accepted. That's normal. And to me, that's so far from what normal should be. Yeah. But I didn't really see it until I was out of it. Kind of like
the idea that somebody can't go a weekend without it is crazy. It is really nuts. I forgot my time when I couldn't go a weekend without stuff. It's so weird.
You think about what do you do every day? Eat, shit, shower. Why does alcohol have a place next to your surviving functions?
Yeah, there's a great an article when I was doing some research for my book. I found out that so they have like a survey you take, or rather a survey you can take. I've been to a few AA meetings. No one ever gave me a survey, right? But there's the survey you take to like see what your drinking habits are. And I guess someone did some research and said, if you compare the drinking habits of your typical 18 to 24-year-old in college to someone on also filling out the alcoholic questionnaire, there's no distinguishable difference, and 1 in 8 Americans drink to the level of an alcoholic, and they don't even realize.
It's because they're not stopping blacked out somewhere, so they don't assume they have an issue. I look at my ex-wife. She still drinks a couple of glasses of wine every night, and she doesn't think that's a problem.
That's crazy.
Like the fact that you drink it every single night of your life with a bowl of chips, and you complain and say that this is not the reason I can't drop weight. It's telling you got a problem because you're denying your problem.
Well, for many, there's no wake-up call. I mean, I didn't have a DUI. I didn't have a blackout where like I got arrested in a fight. I had literally nothing except me doing the harder thing, which is without some cataclysmic event, still having to look at my life and say, objectively, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Could you be better? That's a difficult conversation to have with yourself. But I was like, man, I really want to go all in on this. I want, Ed was talking about Phil's program. When you work with Phil, it's a very hard program. And I was like, man, if I'm going to kick my ass this hard.
You definitely can't drink.
You can't. You just cannot be drinking. It just doesn't fit. And you weigh it out. What's your priority? Like I realized after 20 years of binge drinking, I wanted to go the distance, And for me, I had to drop the booze to do that.
I wish I could say, I didn't have a wake up call or anything like that, and I did something very similar to what Zach did. But I mean, the reality is, like I was saying earlier, I think you missed it, Zach. That first of all, it is kind of still weird to like get used to calling you Zach. I gotta look down and do that every time instead of calling you Hunter. But I said to myself one night after I woke up, another close call. I said, I'm tired of beating the law of large numbers, and for those without a math background. The law of large numbers says that, given the probability that something should happen, the more trials you have, the more likely it is to happen. For example, if I flip a coin 10 times and 7 times it lands on heads, 3 times it lands on tails, you're not going to say that coin is fixed. You'll get it. That if I flip it 10,000 times, it's going to be a lot closer to what should happen. And there's I've read different figures out there, but like something like 1 in 2,700 people who get pulled over under the influence are fail the test and get arrested. And I'm like, I've been pulled over at this point. I've been pulled over 4 separate times where all they had to do was decide, and I would have been cooked. And those are the times I've been pulled over. When I'm talking, who knows how many near accidents I caused or anything or could have caused. And I said, I can't keep taking the risk because now I got some stuff to care about. That was my wake-up call. Very, very fortunate because a lot of people have rock bottom or even worse, the success, that's what kills people too. You get away with something, you think, okay, this ain't that bad. I can do it again. That's how a lot of people end up behind the wheel. They scare you. And then you do it and you're like, oh, that's that. Not only could I drive, nothing happened. All right, no one was looking at me funny, whatever, and you keep doing it, and eventually you mess up. But I'm just lucky, man. Just I tell people all the time how lucky I am. I don't say it proudly. I'm just aware of the fact that In another universe, Ed Latimore is sitting somewhere locked down under the jail. Well, not under the jail. I wasn't that bad, but like it's just bad, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
just too many
have this,
chances. Go ahead, Chris.
I mean, people will talk to me. When I drink, they would say, like, I don't know how you don't have something, because I love drugs and I love drinking, but I use a lot of risk management with that. So I don't understand. I have a hard time because I never drink and drove as much as I did it. And I would always like compare, if you could take 1,000 trips and not get caught, but maybe you get caught on one, is it really worth not taking an Uber for $30,000?
We would.
It's like I don't. Yeah, it's crazy.
You're right, man. They didn't have Uber, and I probably would have been too broke to use it anyway. But there's a great line in Narcos where he says the bad guys have to keep getting lucky. We only have to get lucky once.
Yeah. And
it's that really. I mean, I was sober for years by the time I heard that, but I was like, wow, that really sums it up. But to that point you're saying about you never did it and risk management, I think these are the different types of addicts we talk about. Like you guys are saying, you're from the moderation school. I don't even know what the fuck that word means.
I wasn't even saying I'll do a good thing. I was just sort of trying to figure out why people drink and drive, because like I'm not even saying that's the right way to do it.
We're just foolish. There's no good reason. I wish there was one. Invincibility. Something. It's something I could stand in front of the judge and be like, you understand, Your Honor. Cut me a break.
I'm special.
No, but it brings you back. All right, so think when you were like in middle school and you thought you were invincible. Nothing could go wrong. You're going to live forever. You're good to go. That's exactly like kind of what it brings you back to. It's that it couples with that rush of endorphins, and then you're like, oh my God, wow, I just got away with that. This is amazing. Like nothing can go wrong. And then you do it again. And then you do it again. And then you just keep going until it spirals to that point.
On that, when I hear that, I still think that. Dude, I'm still like pushing as hard as I can, to as much as I can. I'm like, nothing's going to stop me. Like I'm getting it. But here's the thing. I'm also pretty intelligent. And I'm always thinking about, all right, what am I doing? Like, what's really going on here? How far can I really push this? And I realized that more and more and more success I had, the bigger the fall was going to be if I did get caught. And Ed had said it, I think it's in his book, Sober Letters to Your Drunken Self, or Drunken Letters to Your Sober Self. It's the people that are in your corner, that are rooting for you, like, hey, I got your back. They'll support you so much more if you make the decision of, I'm going to give up the booze, as opposed to a lawyer or a judge or you doing time and they're saying you are forced to give up the booze.
Yeah.
There's two different things. Did you quit because you crashed into a family? Is that why you quit? Or you flipped a car over? Or did you quit because you assessed yourself and you realized this isn't good for me?
I just got done writing my father a letter, a long one. And I've never told him this kind of stuff before. And I needed it in writing because I don't want it to get... And I pretty much told him as the global truth of it, I forgave you already, but I'm not going to be in your life if you're using alcohol. So I will support you. I'll help you get through it. We'll have a relationship. We'll try. I would be there to support him if he does, but he has to choose me and my sister over that for me to be in his life. And if he makes that choice, perfect.
I hope people listening to this really, really take that home. Is I'm not sitting here because, like some shit happened. I'm sitting here because I made a choice before that had to happen. Before my kids had to have an intervention, before I got divorced, before I got in legal trouble, before I did something so dumb that my name couldn't be next to somebody like Ed, next to all these guys that I work with. They're like, you're toxic. You did something so bad, it's irrecoverable. And that's what I was thinking about that fall. The more you do, at some point, you've really got to step back and say, hey, is this worth it? And you can make the choice well before, you hit rock bottom. You can hit your own rock bottom without, living under a bridge, sucking dick for a cheeseburger.
That's phenomenal. But that's why, like, when you think of the 12 steps, like, why is asking for forgiveness, even a piece of it? It shouldn't be. You should be able to make that choice and turn away from it before you get.
There's too much weight, dude. Like I did hypnosis with Ryan, and I truly forgave my mother, truly forgave my father, and it lifts a weight. Like you're drugged down by the fact you're resentful.
Mhm.
You're being resentful. It hurts you, not them. To forgive isn't to say like I'm still gonna have a relationship with you, or I'm gonna like not be wary of your proclivities, or I'm even gonna be in your life, but it's at least to not carry like vengeance or carry that darkness with you.
Mm.
Yeah.
You got to forgive
Now,
yourself too. That's heavy as fuck.
Yeah.
the really important thing here, and then this is like such a such a practical, useful lesson that, like you said, man, that everyone really needs to take home. And this goes beyond alcohol. This is any issue in your life, period. Uh, people will like legitimately forgive a lot of dumb shit if you get in front of it before you do something irrevocable and you make a real change. And I'm not talking like I'm sorry, but like some time, and that's why sobriety is real cool, is because there's time in. Someone could tell them I'm serious at 4 years or even at 2 years. 30 days, maybe he's just feeling bad about it. But it's amazing because I think about the strain that I put on some friendships with my behavior under the influence. And I know that our friendships would not be nearly as good if I didn't recognize that was a problem, and that's what was coming. Because when you do that, right, we'll use booze, right? When you do that, when you step in front of it and say, all right, this was a problem, I'm gonna put it away. What you got something that you don't get often in life. You got a second chance. You got a restart button, and you can play the game differently. Now, if you're still an asshole doing the same stuff, you got nothing, and you can't come back from that. But if your behavior changes and this substance is gone, and you stay with that, people are willing because I really think this. People want to forgive, kind of, or at the very least, people want to restore a relationship. Okay, so like anyone you meet after, right? You got free slate with that. But if you got real long bond, ties with somebody, or people will see you did a thing and they learn, well, what did you do afterwards? They're looking to see, and when you do it, they'll go, that was crazy, but it's clear that you really, grew from it. We're gonna let that slide, and then maybe even turn into a joke.
Well,
But
and I never thought about that before. The fact that you put time into 12 steps actually signifies, like, this is what I was with my father. I need him to show that he's worthy of my love and attention and help by
yep,
making commitment to do something.
and
He
there's
can't buy me
nothing wrong
off.
with that. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of people have problems saying it like that, but no, but that is the exchange. If you want me to be in your life and support, I'm gonna need you to show me that you're doing something. Now we don't say it that way often, but I think we should because a lot of people don't get it. Like I got it. I said, okay, as long as I keep my nose clean and I show people I'm serious and
Yeah.
my life gets together, I'll be willing to recover from this.
But I'll say, until you said it right then, I did not really make that sort of connection, because forgiveness isn't till like toward the end of the list, if I remember right. It's like further down,
Yeah.
asking for forgiveness. So you have to have put a lot of time in to actually get there. It isn't step one.
Because ain't nobody trying to hear that shit.
It's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
sure, here's step one. Get the fuck out of here.
Look, we've all been around somebody who was, nursing their hangover, clutching their sides, rolling over, going, "Oh, I'm never going to drink again." Doesn't mean anything.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard that.
I had to go back and delete. I can't tell you how many YouTube videos. 2019 is the year I'm going to be sober. 2017, I'm done. A blog post 3 days later. Hey, let's go party. And I'm just like, fuck, man. So this one, I think I messaged Ed. I was like, hey, I'm done. He's like, oh, that's fucking awesome. I was like, I'm going to tell everybody. He's like, I don't think you should do that. I was like, I'm doing it. And I announced it because in my head I knew it was different. But I think there's something to that forgiveness and in trying to forgive yourself and going through that process is also, if you're in, and for me, I knew something was different this time. And I knew I was not going to get a lot of support initially. And then month 1, you start to see the trickle. Month 3, a little more. And now the 1 year mark is a big one. 400 days, right now I'm almost at 450. To me, that's a cool number. Other people, you're over, you're sober. That's what they're really seeing. You put more than a year into something. Few people can do that. And then 2, 3, 4, I can't wait to be like, I'm sitting there with that. I'm like, yeah, I've got 7 or 6 or whatever you're at right now. Like, I think that's awesome. But people, I think there's like thresholds. Like if you're 1, 2, or 3, you're in like this little window in their head. If you're over 3 years sober, you're like, all right, you're on that. You're pretty much the same as somebody saying they're 15.
The problem is with that. There's an inherent problem with that though. If they haven't solved the problems beneath that 3 years of sobriety, and we let them go and don't make sure they solve the actual issues, there's still as much risk as the first guy on the first day. You have to figure those issues out.
Let me tell you something. I saw something super powerful the other day, and I don't get taken aback by a lot, but this hit me. And but they said, abstinence will keep you from pulling the trigger on yourself, but you still got to figure out why you picked up that gun in the first place. And I said, that is incredible, because it's one thing for like, you can put them in prison and they're not going to drink, right? You can separate somebody from their vice, but humans are effing ingenious at this stuff, man. I think Chris Rock has a joke to be like, made all drugs illegal tomorrow, there'll be some basement chemist with a llama bean and some gasoline. Like, if you suck on this, man, it'll get you fucked up, right? And that was a joke. Like humans will figure this out. They will figure out a way to not face the hard thing and figure out what's going on. But if you do that, you never you'll never have to use, and that's really I think the difference between people, we'll say people like me, whether it's a compulsion or a habit, and people who never, like people like my fiance. She'll open a bottle of wine, pour a glass, drink half the glass, and then the bottle will be there for another month. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? If that was me, that'd be gone tonight. We'd have to go out and get another bottle. Like, but you can't even finish a glass, man. What's wrong with you? It's a waste of water.
It gets weird when life gets that way, though. For me, recently, after I did my last hypnosis with Ryan, I cleared up a lot of the sort of final issues with my father. And I remember I went out with my buddy the other day. We just had a drink. I drank like a sip and left it there because they were closing. I'm like, oh, whatever. It's just sort of strange because I wouldn't have done that in the past. And I'm not saying everybody should use moderation. Most people probably shouldn't. I just have sort of figured it out in a way. And it's still a danger. I have to admit that. It's always a danger every single day if I choose to live a moderate life and risk, and like harm reduction life. I have to.
Hey, Chris, you've taken some of those drugs, right? Like I believe there's like naltrexone.
Yeah.
For some of that, and
I only heard naltrexone because you're cutting out a little bit.
Yes. So, I hope I'm not cutting out. You had used, or you were put on that in the past because was it your wife that thought there was a problem?
No, for naltrexone, I was drinking way too much, and I wanted to drink, and naltrexone allowed me to drink at the time because they had a thing called chemical extinction or something where it doesn't affect your dopamine systems. But let's not send people down that path. But what naltrexone ended up doing is it blocks opiate receptors, so it sort of prevents the alcohol from doing the thing to the addict that it normally does to cause the addiction. But it doesn't mean you can't get drunk or still abuse and have compulsions. So I would say it's a tool to stop drinking if you want to use it for that, and it can help that because it takes away that dopamine hit. Because when you drink, you're getting two things: you're getting drunk plus dopamine, and it gets rid of that dopamine. So now all of a sudden you're drinking and you're not getting what you were getting out of it anymore. So it'll help you put it down. That's why I would say to use naltrexone. I continue to use it because it also is a weight loss tool. And it also, I've talked to doctors, it does balance out your emotions a little bit. It reduces the spikes. So that's the other reason. It's sort of just, it's like I'm not saying to be dependent on a drug, and I forget to take it all the time now, but if you need something or you feel like you want to explore it, that's what it does. It just blocks the dopamine receptors. So you don't get that reward for drinking. That's what it does.
And one thing that I used it for, and I still have it, but I stopped taking it. Is what they call the Sinclair method, and
that was the one I was talking about. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So instead of how in the U.S. they prescribe it so that you're taking it every single day, it's taking it before you drink. So you're cutting off that dopamine during that experience so that you're only feeling the drunk and the negative side effects of it, and you're not getting that mental high that comes with it. It's very interesting.
Did you? Oh, you got sick off of it, right? But did it?
Yeah, I would get sick. It does. It works. Okay. It's actually mind blowing.
It's crazy to me to hear people balance. Go ahead.
I said, I know with me with naltrexone, it was helpful in the beginning. I really forget to take it most of the time now, and it doesn't really change anything when I do. But I had an addiction specialist who I was talking to say you should just go ahead and continue to take it anyway, even if you don't need it, because it is a safety mechanism considering your opiate history. And that's why I continue to drink it. I would just tell people, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do that. There's different ways to solve your problem, and everybody's different. It may be you need to be abstinent. It may be that you can, but just don't think like, oh wow, I got a way out. I can still continue to drink if you need to be abstinent. Like if you're
that's exactly
you're not cheap.
Chris, that's exactly what I'm getting at. Like, don't look for a band-aid to your problem because the problem is internal first. I started on that because I thought that I needed something like that. I thought it was like supremely chemically imbalanced in my head. Whereas I just had to identify the problems in my life first and then fix it. And then after doing that, wanting to binge drink, do anything like that, it substantially decreased.
Yeah, I want to tell that it's going to go off of alcohol a little bit, but I really want to go into my latest story at some point. Just about 5 minutes of it, because I think it sort of goes into this whole behavioral mechanism thing, but I really want to put her away because she's bothering me at this point. So I'm going to check out.
No problem. Take a minute. You're good.
Dude, something that trips me out with booze is literally the lengths people will go to make it work. Like if I take this drug and I combine it with that, and if I do a backflip, I can then take some shots. Did you ever think like just don't drink? You know, like, did you ever think just alcohol is a bad thing that we shouldn't do? And this might be a little.
I thought about that several times when I was drinking. I think there's a chapter in the book called "Doing the Math" where I talk about that.
How many times do you sit there and you're like, "Well, you're an adult man and you're counting how many drinks you're having." Come on now, like why? Just don't drink.
I've gone several times, several shameful experiences where I show up at the bar. And I show up at 11:30, and I know that direct deposit hit at midnight. and I'm sitting there drinking.
Shots for the whole bar.
And they do, and then the direct deposit don't hit until midnight West Coast time, and then I'm fucked. Man. So
okay, that later.
No, it's just there's just, and then I remember, dude, we used to. But when we didn't have any money, right? Instead of going, why don't we go make money or save it? We would get down to the club. We'd go to the liquor store, buy the plastic bottle stuff, and then some hood teas like the kind in the boxes. Drink half the box and then pour some in the rest. Crush it back and then go in. And we try and time it so we would get drunk right as we were in there. There are all kinds of, and this sounds like some people hear it and go, okay, this is just young guys being young guys. But that's not the point. The point is like the mismatching of priorities or the order of priorities are way off. And then, if you're doing it down without money, when you get money, I am so grateful. I talk about it all the time. I was broke when I got sober, right? Completely broke. Like, not even. I mean, in fact, I can tell you exactly what I was making. I had just got back from AIT, and so I was being paid an E2 salary for and it was like somewhat active duty. So you know what that is. It ain't much, and it's not gonna last because I'm on reserve. So it's only for the last week. So So I don't really have anything, and then I get a job at the bank for $10 an hour. But at this point, I had decided I was going to be sober. But I didn't have any money when I was doing it. I thank my lucky stars that I figured this out before I had means to destroy myself. Like now, I could do a lot. I could do a lot of damage in a real short amount of time if I was still drinking. But like we talk about this all the time because while fortunately, she's actually never seen me drunk, or maybe one time, and she wasn't even sure if I was just this weird guy that she had just met, or if I was drunk. But when we travel now, because she's seeing kind of how I obsess over things and I can get really fixated, because it's a really good thing you don't drink alcohol the way you drink coffee. Because the way I drink coffee is a problem to the point like we actually had a fight about this like way back when we first started dating. The whole French press would be gone, and she's like, why didn't you why didn't you make some more, but how could you even drink all that? That's just how I am now. She's just kind of used to it, but that level of consumption is incredible, man. You can do a lot of damage with the means to do so, and I think a lot of my buffers were being broke until they were, and I never had to entertain what it would be like to just have a bottle of wine at the house all the time.
You know how interesting it is? So inside the Fraternity of Excellence, guys, when they join, they're introduced to a lot of motivated dudes. And one of the things that really trips them up is when they start bringing up their bad habits. So let's say it's drinking, or let's say it's eating too much food. They don't see it until someone says, if you weren't spending the money on the alcohol, this problem you just shared about needing to fix your finances, you would have fixed it. You'd probably have doubled the amount of money from saving that from alcohol to pay off that debt that you were saying you want to kill. But sometimes it takes that other person looking in to even shine a light on that. Because when you're in it, like you were saying, like instead of making more money, you're finding a way to get the $3 like
Yep.
go get a tea. Like when you're in that shit, it's like the blinders are on and you just want this thing because it makes you happy or it's fun or whatever. And sometimes it does work when other people point it out.
That's what I love about these men's communities that actually will point the finger at the problem. Like that'll call you out for your shit. I love the men's communities that do that.
Yeah,
like Alex
FOE, it's like the opposite of like social media. Like on Facebook and Twitter, you have your highlight reel. If you go in my group, it's like a dumpster fire. People are sharing their real world lives. They're sharing the real problems, but they're making real growth off it. So it's a cool thing where you're actually successful and not chasing the image of success.
It's a really good point. Yeah, because like you can go ahead and post something on social media and you get a bunch of people like thumbs up, like you got it, great job. And then in these types of communities, you have people that say, dude, are you an idiot? What are you doing right now? And they're actually the people that are going to call you out and get you to improve. And it takes that type of person that's willing to accept that and look inwards to make a change.
And usually the call outs, I find them very respectful in the communities I'm in. It isn't like I'm trying to put you down. It's like, no, you're doing it wrong. But here, let me help you to get it right. Here's what I see. And it's been really helpful just to do it for other people, to see it done for me. I've relied on Alex for a lot. He's relied on me for a lot because we get caught up in our own egos a lot of times. And it's easy to, it's hard to, like when you see somebody has your best interest, it's easier to drop your ego.
Well, you trust the person who's been burned by a fire to tell you why you should respect the fire. So it's true. It's a lot easier for me to be like, hey, Ed, I'm looking to do this because he's been there and seen that. And I've seen him share, messages of other people like, hey, you helped me find my way. And Chris, I'm sure you've seen it as well. And I'm not as familiar with your work, but from what you just said, when people come to you like, oh, because you shared your story and I understand what you overcame, I can talk to you and you get me.
It's
and
great.
The same thing.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's amazing.
I've been very, very public with it's Ed and Phil. Phil, and this lady Annie Grace who wrote This Naked Mind. Those are my three. Whenever I do any shout out, like those are the three that helped me. They might not help you, but they helped me. And, and having somebody like that, it highlights what you just said, Chris, and what Ed was saying earlier is like people get it, and as long as you're helping yourself, they want to help you. I respond to every DM about that because I was in their shoes 435 days ago.
Yeah. And people, congratulations on 450, by the way. I didn't say that earlier.
I'm getting there almost 2 weeks.
Oh, you are at 450. Okay, got it. Well, congratulations on almost there. I forget what I was going to say to that, but like, oh, I know. Sometimes people get embarrassed by their problems, and it also by sort of saying, "Hey, I have this problem." Now you're showing compassion for yourself, showing compassion, and then they can have compassion for themselves and be like, maybe I don't need to be embarrassed by this. Maybe this is just a problem some people have, and I can solve it. And if I solve it, then I have nothing to be ashamed of. That's sort of
alcohol's addictive. You're supposed to get addicted. That's how it works.
Well, there's a reason you like it, right?
Yeah.
It's not. I don't like the drug policy of treating drugs the way they do, because they kids don't believe them, because they're like, why would you ever use this? And you go to an addiction website and it lists all the bad stuff and it never lists the good stuff. And I'm like, there's a reason people like it, but there's also this damage it does. That's the cost of that.
Yeah, the cost exceeds the value.
Right.
Is the idea. It just no one like you'll never meet somebody who, oh shit, I smoke crack again. Like it doesn't really work that way. At least not like for the crack feeling. I mean, that's why they. And no one ever talks about that. At least in this country, we treat it we don't treat it correctly. I think a lot of people now. I think there's been a tremendous amount of movement towards seeing this issue right and understanding, what makes someone turn to this as a way to cope, as opposed to, I don't know, going to the gym, right? Or like therapy.
It's easier.
It's much easier. And it creates, one of the big things. This is the other thing too. I think this is huge, and I hope it continues to get attention if it hasn't gotten it yet. It starts to. Whenever I talk to somebody at an AA thing, or just we're chatting about the booze, man, it's always the social circle. They get into it because it's a social circle. They're afraid to stop. It's a social circle. People are social creatures, and that provides a community. It might not be the best community, but no one wants to be the lone wolf, man. You rather live with a bunch of fucking crackhead wolves than be by yourself, right? Yeah. And that's the whole point and the whole problem. A lot of drug use, a lot of drinking, it's all social. It's very much let me not be alone.
I'm going to talk real quick about talking about everything, about the idea that you stop doing something, you think you're fine, but you're not, because you haven't solved the underlying issue. And the risk of what me and Alex do, which is like more moderation. And what happened recently is after I got out of my marriage, I was dating a lot. I mean, a lot. And I was good at it. And girls like me, guys were looking up to me. But then I just sort of got tired. I started dating one girl primarily. Then I sort of dropped off all the other dating. I was only dating her. And I started thinking that the reason I wasn't happy was I wasn't banging enough girls, or young girls or whatever, And I ended up talking to Ryan Christensen. And I actually started doing more of another drug, just sort of because I was like, I knew I was floundering. I knew there was a problem, but I didn't know what it was. And I thought it was the fact that I wasn't diversifying my sexuality. And, like I wasn't having sex with enough girls. I actually believe this, right? And then I talked to Ryan Christensen and we did a hypnosis session. I'm breaking this down really short, but I figured out that all these 20-year-old girls that like me and everything, that was validation, because I had this input from my father that made me feel unworthy for so long. It was just so under the bottom of how I built my mind. It is this big pillar under there that I was using that. And when I took that away, when I wasn't doing that, all of a sudden I was in the same position I was in with my wife years earlier, with no meaning, no purpose for being in the world other than that it had become my purpose. And now I didn't have it anymore. So now I'm just doing drugs up my nose, knowing I have an issue and not knowing how to solve it, and thinking, well, okay, I need to start dating again. That's going to solve it. And it turned out that it was just that validational issue. And once I got through that with Ryan and forgave my father, it's like I told you, Alex, I go, I'm done after this. I go, we're going on this trip, and then I'm not doing it anymore. Came back, didn't do it anymore. But I told you I had a problem with it. I was like, no, I got an issue. I got to figure out what it is. I can't control myself if I'm around it. I just can't I can't do. I'm only going to do it on weekends. I can't do. I'm only going to do it once a month. I have to be like, I am not doing this anymore.
But you're still saying to yourself, you have to do it.
What do you mean?
So you're saying, like, you know, on the weekends or here and there, you're still telling yourself, you're giving yourself permission. And you're like, I'm being better. I'm being better, but I'm not solving the problem.
And I pretty much had, I know enough about myself to know I can't do that. And I wasn't even going to try because I had enough history. So I said, you know what? This drug is not going to work for me. I have plans for my life. And, you know, once I figured out that I didn't want that as my purpose, dating girls, I wanted my purpose to be something more magnificent. Why do I need other people to validate to be my purpose? I can be my own or have something on my own. And once I sort of went down that road of this is now a hindrance to what I want to do, which is to go into music. This is no longer serving me because it is keeping me from accomplishing the goals I really want to do. It was so easy to put it down. It was just like, I'm done. Just done. And that's the mechanism. Now, I'm not saying that's easy for everybody, but the mechanism definitely of just hiding from your problems, that definitely becomes like using these things as coping mechanisms. It leaves you vulnerable if you aren't solving the major issues. So I'd say go get some real psychological help in a real program. You know, if you need to go to 12-step, go do that. If you need to, you know, do hypnosis, I know somebody that's awesome at it. He's amazing at it. Talk to friends, build a social circle. The men's group has been great. Like I have a social circle that I can talk to that understands me, you know? So that's what you're talking about AA. It gives you a social circle, right?
Yeah.
So
one of the things we tell the guys in the porn challenges, the guys trying to get our porn, I run the porn, these 8-week porn challenges. One of the things I tell them is, you know, reach out to some guys and talk to them. Just, you know, talk. It's just because it's a lost art today.
mm-hmm.
And it's always been important. It's not any more important now than it's ever been. It's always been important. The difference is that today we have structured our entire lives around kind of keeping these close, distant relationships,
Mm-hmm.
where like no one calls someone because calling is scary, and let's send a text message and wait to get back, right? And people don't want to get together and have just coffee. It's got to be, you know, effing drinks or take a walk with your boys, man. Like, just call to check in, be like, hey, man, are you okay? Like, those things make a really big difference in how lonely you feel in the world. Because I'm fortunate that I didn't get really into this internet world. I'm a millennial, and I think everyone. I'm not. You look a little younger. But I'm not too sure. But like most of us here are millennials or older, and that means that we know about the world without that. We know a different world. In other words, a lot of people today don't know that world, and it's really easy to rely on this digital space, but it's not fulfilling. It doesn't serve right. It's like trying to fulfill your intimacy with pornography. It's what it is, right? It's not real. Your brain goes, oh, that's kind of close, but shit, I don't really know. And we're still lonely, and we suck. Let's go try it again. Oh, we're still lonely. Well, not now. We're chasing the dragon.
Remember that, Alex, when we talked about that on the time we did the Instagram, where we were saying that it's so easy to replace people now because social media made our world, instead of 100 people in a tribe or 150, all of a sudden you got 1 million people you can reach out to. So now you're annoying me. I don't have to like work with you. I just get a new friend.
You know? You don't have to take responsibility for messing up, because you can just blame the other person and then go find somebody else to talk to. Blocked.
Yeah, no, you can say the same with distractions are infinite. You know, instead of looking at you and assessing what you're doing, you can say, oh, I'm working on a blog. I'm not going to face my drinking. You know, I can drink, but I can work and build here. Oh, I can go over there and I'm working with these guys. I'm doing all this great stuff. I've got my job. I've got my family. But you were talking about relationships, and I think very few people have a relationship with themselves. I think very few people can walk and look in the mirror like, oh, you're a good dude. Like, when I gave up booze, and this might come across, I don't want it to come across in any way as arrogant or anything like that, But when I made that decision, I was done. It was not difficult at that point, that time. And since then, I can go to the bar and buy drinks and bring it to my friends. You know, when you were talking about moderation or replacing it with sex or with drugs, you know, I didn't have that because I had come to terms like, no, it's like that was the last piece of me. I was trying to figure me out, and I'd come to terms with my past. You know, I lost my mom early. I dealt with that. You know, I wasn't that great of a student. I dealt with that. Coming up with business, leaving the military, losing the mission. I dealt with all these things, and it's like this was the final. Like when that went in, it completed my picture of like, oh, that's Zach. That's who Zach is. I'm cool with that dude. Like him and I, we're in a good place. I don't need to run to booze. You know, I'm definitely not going to run from anything. And I think a lot of people, there's this perception, you run to alcohol because you're a party animal. You run to alcohol because you're into this. No, dude, you're running away from something. There's something behind you that you're trying to, like, alcohol is a great thing to distract you with. You know, that's why you see a lot of great things online, and then you meet the person, or a month later, they're an absolute fucking disaster. Because they were trying to, if I will it, you know, it'll become real. I am happy. I am winning. I am connected to my family. No, man. You stop trying to present that and just face it and build a relationship with you as a man or
right
that you're going through.
And you said a word because I've met. I don't like. There's no way to quantify this, but I know I've met a lot of people from the internet. I pride myself on doing that, and you know what you see a lot, or rather, unfortunately, not a lot, but sometimes you do see it. Is this attempt to be a thing, because that thing comes with validation, comes with attention, and you realize real quick. Now you don't say anything because that's not cool, but you realize real quick that this person is not that thing that they're presenting. And it's not. And they're not doing it to be malicious, though. It's not like an act of intentional deception. It's more like this. If I just fake this enough, eventually I'll be this person, and then I can be the image that I think I have in my mom. But I don't like who I am now, right? And who they are now is fine. It's not like there's some type of troll or something like that. And well, it's one thing. You got to be careful with the language because language is important. It's one thing. I'll never say if you're dissatisfied with who you are to not work on changing. But you have to make sure, or we have to make sure we're very clear on what you're dissatisfied about. Are you dissatisfied about an innate trait? Ain't shit you can do if you're short, right? Or are you dissatisfied? or are you dissatisfied? Because like you don't have any friends, or you're broke, like things that you can change. So but more, it used to be implied that was meant, but now I got to make sure I make it clear. I'm not telling people if they dislike who they are, change. Even if that means body mutilation and development, some kind of like complex. No, just be that person. And in the meantime, kind of take humility in the journey. And so many guys, there are enough of them where they want to be so bad that they will not work on becoming. They just rather fake on being, and that's it.
Really good point. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people want to join Chris and I's community or come for dating advice, and really what they're looking for is a friend to talk to more than actually focusing on a problem that they have, because they're not focused, and then they make no progress, and then they complain about it, and it's like, well, why did you even get involved with this program to begin with? And that really is, and it's a tough question to ask, but I think everybody knows the answer of what they want to work on, how they want to improve. A lot of times they just don't want to admit what it really is.
I would say with that too, to admit that you're failing, that's a part, I think, to what both Ed and I were saying with the relationship with yourself. You have to give yourself permission to have made that mistake. Like when I look back at the mistakes I made, and this is probably a part of healing too. one of my biggest issues, like I said, it wasn't the booze. I have not had a calling since the day I quit, or like a craving. But I have had moments where I'm like, that was really, really messed up of me to do that. I've thought about the times I drove, the times where I'd pass out after a party, and I'm like, what if there's a fire that night? I'm talking about masculinity, fatherhood, patriarchy, and I'm a liability to my family. Like that, that kind of messed me up, because I'm like, man, like I don't view myself as a hypocrite, but those actions were very hypocritical to my message, and it felt horrible. But I had to be like, Zach, dude, in my head, I'm not talking out loud, I'm not that crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, dude, like that happened, but that's why you're on this path. That's why we have to stay sober. That's why we're doing this, because we're not that guy anymore. And for the guys that join you guys' group, that's a good reframe. You came here for a reason. You picked that gun up for a reason, like Ed was saying. What was that? What was that why? Let's go back there and focus on that thing. And if you can come to terms with that, then maybe the progress will follow and you'll be a little more committed.
Yeah, there's a reason, though, that not everybody's king, right? People don't want to do the work a lot of times. It's
Heavy
like everybody
weighs the
wants to
crown.
be king, but they don't deserve it, really. They haven't done. They don't want to do the work, and it's
That great line, and then the part where he's accusing Leonardo DiCaprio's character being a rat, and then he goes, yeah, I could be you, Frank, but I don't want to be you. He goes, heavy weighs the crown, right? And it's true, man. It's not easy to do the work. It's a lot easier to act like you're doing the work.
yeah. There's no real shortcuts on becoming sort of self-actualized in a way. That's something none of us are when we're. I mean, maybe we are when we first come out, because like we have no predispositions about how great we are at the world around us. But everybody gets problems growing up, and there's always work. If you want to be the best version of yourself, there's always work you got to do, and you'll never reach it completely. So, but you can at least get close, or you can get as far as possible.
And if you care and believe about what you're doing, it's the same thing when you're going to go sober. You're not going to tell everybody, I'm going sober. And then, 30 days later, whatever. It's a personal thing to you, because you identify what's wrong with you and you work on it.
Usually when I talk about it, I always try to make it in relation to, is it going to help this person? I don't really talk about it a lot when it comes to not helping anybody, because it's just like, I don't care what they think. I was riding, me and my girlfriend went out to a club the other day, and I was like, order a black. And she's like, why? And I go, because I want air conditioning and feet room, so when we get there, I can dance and be comfortable. And she's like, well, we'll show up. I don't give a shit what they think. I don't care about showing up in a black. Drop us off a black way. I want to get there in comfort. It's all about me. Yeah. It's how I want to feel, not for them.
So I got a question for you guys. When it comes to like early sobriety, or even just an early break in an addiction cycle, what are some like the best advice, best tips you would give to somebody? Zach, it sounds like your experience was very different, where it's just like you had thought about it for a while and you made a decision and you were good to go. But I know for a lot of people, when they change, because essentially addiction is a habit, and it's doing something over and over and over again. So what is your best advice to breaking that cycle and starting on a new path?
Having a plan, dude. That's hands down easy. The number one thing anybody can do is you're going to a party and you don't want to drink, have a plan. For me, my hands were filled. I had a coffee when I showed up. I was living in Rhode Island when this started. In New England, Dunkin' Donuts is a thing. Everybody has Dunkin' Donuts. It was not weird so also to announce, if people don't know, my wife we're the same days sober. She quit when I quit. And she didn't really have a problem. She could stop. She was more like Ed's lady. She could have the glass and then not have it. She did that for me. And I didn't ask her to. She just said, if you're not doing it, why would I even want to? So we would show up, both of us, filled with coffees. We'd drink our iced coffee. We'd have seltzers in our little cooler that we bring. And bam, my hand would have a seltzer in it. A seltzer. So when people would ask me, you want to drink? I'm good. I got my own. You're not drinking? No, I'm working on my health. I don't feel like drinking. Now, for me personally, I kind of like to just like throw it out there. No, I'm sober. I don't drink anymore. Like, dude, you were partying 2 days ago. Yeah, but today's different. So that was my approach. I don't recommend it.
Yeah, that's not a good approach.
Dude, having a game plan is my advice when people ask me. Have your coffee in your hand, have a seltzer in your hand, and then go to the party with a plan in your head.
I was laughing because when we went out this weekend, there's some friends there. They're like, "What are you on?" I was like, "Nothing. I'm just dancing." They're like, "What do you mean you're not on nothing?" I'm not on anything. I'm not doing anything. Come on.
Yeah, that's the best feeling when people are like, "He's sober," and I'm like, "Well, I'm having a good time." But as far as like a plan, man, I didn't have a plan. I was unbelievably busy. I didn't have like I got sober on the 23rd. By the 28th, I was in the gym training for a fight, drilling, getting ready for. I was looking for a job. That's right. I was looking for, and I got it at the bank because you don't make shit as a fighter when you first start out anyhow. And I was training to fight, man, and training to fight at a pro level. That's a 40-hour. Like real 40 hours, not like you go hang up at a water cooler and bullshit shit every now and then. Like no, like real talk in the gym, probably 7 days, well 6 days a week. We took Sunday off, but for 4 to 6 hours minimum. And so I was so busy and exhausted, and I was coming home and I wanted to hang out with Anna and spend time with her. I built up such a busy life of stuff and habits and just ways to make myself better. I had to look this up one day. I didn't go out. I wasn't out past midnight, let alone after. Probably not after dark. Maybe once or twice, but I wasn't out past midnight for the first year and a half of my sobriety. I didn't go out again past midnight till when John Bones Jones fought Daniel Cormier. We went and watched that fight at Dave and Buster. And you know how, at least on the East Coast, fight doesn't come on until like 12:31 on the main event. So I was out for that. But by that point, the habit was so reinforced, I didn't even think about it. I'm out with people, and I'm like, okay, good, we're in. So my plan, if you can't, a plan is good, and to supplement that, man, you gotta. I effectively had a plan, right? I guess, right? I just didn't think of it that way. I was too busy executing that shit, man. There was no free time. There wasn't a lot of time for me to be alone with my habit. Now I still had to like cope. There wasn't a lot of time for me to put myself around a lot of the external triggers, I guess. And the way I describe sobriety is I describe it as a habit. And when you're making a new habit, it's like a little tree, like a little seedling. If you let it out and be subject to the stresses of people walking on that shit too early, you're gonna kill it. Or some asshole comes along and pulls it up, and there ain't nothing. The roots are weak, so you got to protect it. And I think I protected my habit long enough to where it was no thing. By the time I got back out, I started socializing again like a normal person, and then I had more confidence in my ability to say no as well, because now I got the time in. It's a lot easier to go. I've only been sober for 2 weeks, good, instead of freaking 14 months. You're like, oh, well, this be a waste of time to go back. So
one thing I found, I think a lot of people might suffer from this. It sort of entered my mind, but I got rid of it really quick. And I think it's pretty prevalent. Is when you stop feeling like people give a crap if you're drinking. Like anybody that's drinking doesn't need to worry about what other people think. You go to a party. I mean, there's plenty of things I go to now. I don't drink, even though I drink sometimes. You say, nope, that's okay. I'm good. Just give me some water. And they don't care. They're so consumed with what's going on inside of their life. They really could care less if you're drinking or not. But I know a lot of people feel awkward not drinking around a bunch of people drinking, but you don't need to, because they don't care. They just don't care. Like, I'm not saying they're bad people, but they are so consumed with their own BS that you say, no, I'm good. I don't need a drink. Can I have some water? Okay, that's it. You don't need to be awkward anymore. Nobody, and I think, I don't know. Did you guys go through that where you felt weird?
Yeah. There's a period where you're like, I'm not drinking. Everyone else is drinking. I'm just here for and even still it went on for a while. But one of the two things, a few things, at least for me, I don't know how it was for Zach, that I think made my experience easier. And it's not something everyone can do. It's just what I did. First, I realized real quick, if I just said I'm sober instead of drinking, that had a different reaction. Instead of not drinking, that had a very different reaction. when you say I'm sober, people automatically relate that to some type of issue, and they back off. Not nearly as and when you tell them you're not drinking, it's not nearly as fast. Some people push when you go I'm sober, it elicits a different response. There's that. People also around me knew that I was fighting, right? So they just kind of assumed that I was doing it for my career, and so that let a lot of stuff go that I'm sure probably I would have had to encounter would have made my life more difficult. But to that I say, yeah, I mean, get real comfortable real soon telling people you're sober because look, I don't recommend isolation. I think a lot of people sometimes do. I think you're in worse. Somebody said it best: an addict by himself is in the worst company possible. I think if you're going, you cannot be by yourself. You have to, whether that's getting a whole new group of sober friends or seeing old friends, let them know what's good. But either way, you're gonna have to say, "Look, man, I'm sober.
That's
I got."
another thing. A lot of times, if you change positive, you're going to have to get new friends. That's another thing that's like because
people don't like it. They don't like it.
It's not even that they're not the quality of people you necessarily want in your life. I'm not saying everybody's that way. I'm saying they might be people that are toxic. You might need to get new friends.
The flip of that too, though, is the people you inspire. As soon as you said that, my mother-in-law is about to hit a year sober in 2 weeks. My dad, he hits a year sober in October. So,
nice.
I didn't even talk to them about this. They saw what Zachy and I were doing, and they jumped on board.
That's a good point.
To your point on the drinking, just because of the nature of me, like I relish in that. I like to do things a little bit differently, But I will say, and again, I'm going to keep bringing it back because I don't think people pay enough respect to other people. I had Ed and Phil in my corner. So I had dudes who were 100% supportive. So whenever I thought it was weird, well, it's weird for people who don't have goals as big as mine to be sober. But to people who have goals that are as big as mine, that they understand because you should give that up if you're going to go as far as we're trying to go. So it made a lot of sense. But again, I've got the guys inside FOE. I've got a family that's supportive. I'm not a college. I was 30 when I started. I was 33. I'm 34 now, so I was 33 years old with a 10 and a 7-year-old. I was a dad of 2 kids married, man. I wasn't going to the club. I wasn't going out to bars really. Going out to the bar, I was going on a date or maybe with other baseball coaches. So my phase of life was different as well. That's an element, dude. I mean, college students, I think they'd be better off with eds. Like, hey, I'm sober. And then maybe the other college students, again, I'm going to typical frat boy style. You would not mess with the dude if you were trying to I don't want him to hurt himself. I'm just trying to get him to party.
Thinking about you're talking about college right here. The one thing I do have a lot of animosity about is the nature of how we glorify alcohol in our society. I get so mad at my ex for having stuff around it's 5 o'clock or it's wine 30 or drink wine. I get so upset with that, and I don't want to go into politics, but then they complain about other stuff like guns, and I'm like, alcohol kills more people. I can't take you seriously. We don't care about alcohol, and it really is frustrating to me how we don't do anything about it.
I have a chapter, or I had a chapter in the book that I took it out because I thought it would. Even though it was related to alcohol, I thought it would detract from the overall message, and it was called "The Drunk Elephant in the Living Room," and it talked about the different ways that alcohol affects things that we don't normally associate drinking with, like the if you remove the alcohol from the situation, you would reduce the amount of sexual assaults in the age range of 18 to 24 by 95%. No one wants to talk about that. And I went and crunched those numbers hard by finding out, the number of rapes and assaults and how many self-reported assaults that were happening with drinking and extrapolated a bit. But I came to a number between 90 and 95%. And that's
give up their drinking.
That's a big, that's a huge deal. How, if me, with my rudimentary physics degree, was able to crunch those numbers, I'm not like a pro number guy. How has no one looked and said, "Wow, this is a problem"? But it is, but we know it is a problem, and then no one wants to deal with it. It's that big drunk elephant in the living room. People just looking at going, okay, we'll ignore that. Just keep giving us money to combat sexual assault. Let's make it about that. When the reality is, alcohol messes everyone up. It ruins God's ability to interpret signals, and it ruins women's ability to be aware of the fact that they're sending off certain signals they may not want to send off, and you get them intoxicated, and mistakes happen. And I'm not advocating. I'm not excusing anything done under the influence of alcohol. I'm merely understanding that alcohol is an exacerbating circumstance.
Yeah, I'm really, when I was dating a lot, I was would not mess with anybody that was intoxicated. It's just like I didn't want them to be regretful.
Save yourself, man.
To be regretful, but I also didn't want to go to jail. But I mean, 80,000 people a year in the U.S. die from alcohol-related things, I believe, or something like that. Is crazy. It's a crazy number. But
I feel
like people just want to do it.
There's so much money. There's money.
There's so much money they make.
It's closed down during lockdown. The liquor stores stayed open. Somebody tell me why gyms are shut down and liquor stores are open during a pandemic. On hell. Right. Money talks, man.
Because the gym membership is cheaper. They don't make as much money. and I live in a state where it's a state-run liquor store. So.
And then,
are you in PA or Utah?
Yeah, I'm in PA. I live outside Philly.
What part? Oh, okay, I'm in Pittsburgh. Okay. Yeah, just a random story about that. So Chris Rock's got this joke where he's talking about. You're in the hood because you pull up and you see liquor store, gun store, liquor store. The first time I heard that joke, I was like 11, and I didn't get it because I'd never been in any other state. Now I'm like, oh man, I lived in Cali. Holy shit! Yeah, you're in a bad part of town when it's liquor store, gun store, and check cash in places.
Or you're outside of a basement.
It really is. It's crazy, and it's such a moneymaker. It's the same thing why. They hounded down with Juul and the e-cigarettes and getting rid of the flavors because they want to make it less attractive because kids were going towards that, and they want kids going towards the cigarettes because the cigarette companies are the ones who are getting all the money. And it's the same type of thing. They just have too many people in there, and it gets them too much money.
Private prisons, drug policy, everything's crazy in the U.S. right now. I can't believe that. Some of our stuff here, I don't want to get into a political thing. I just can't believe. I just get so appalled. But we have to change that. And I do that with my kids. My kids, I don't tell them to ever. I don't ever say you should or justify using. But I always say everything has a different danger profile to it. So know what the hell you're doing. Never use pills because you don't know. Don't ever put pills in your mouth. Street pills? Are you crazy? Don't do that. You
teach your kids how to look up what's on the pill and how to find out exactly what it is, right?
No. No. But I mean, I have been honest about them and which are safer and which are less safe when it comes to that kind of thing. Like this is more dangerous than this, but I'm not saying either of them are okay to take. Because if they're going to make a bad choice, at least they can make a less damaging bad choice.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I want to share a story on that. So I knew somebody when I was younger, and I'm not going to implicate anybody here, but he had robbed a pharmacy, and he didn't want to have some of the drugs on him, and he ended up giving me a bag, and the bag was full of a bunch of full-strength Xanax bars. I had no idea what that even was, and I just took it, and it felt good. Yeah, I didn't know at the time. And I just would take one a day, and it would make me feel relaxed and great. I'm like, this is awesome. And I kept doing it, and kept doing it. And then there was one night that I was doing other things. I was going away for the weekend, and I didn't.
Time.
I didn't have anything. I didn't bring anything with me. I didn't even think about it because I had no idea how it interacted. And I ended up going into the brain zap, like the worst rebound ever. It was crazy. I felt like I transported to a different world. And my buddy had to like really take care of me, and I'm surprised it didn't drop into like a seizure or something. It was a very, very scary experience. And it's important to know what you're doing. And it's important to teach your kids like what this stuff is and what happens when you go down these routes.
Yeah, I mean, like let's pretend like they're real Xanax on the street. You get addicted to benzodiazepines and you stop cold turkey because you can't get them, you could die. And they're one of the most addictive drugs there is physiologically, cocaine being mentally the most addictive. You know, like you need to know how addictive these things are as well. You need to know, like, if I do this, is it going to feel so good? That's like some people say never use crack because you don't want to know what that feels like. And I'm like, nope, I don't want to know what that feels like. Stay away from me. I don't want to use meth. Stay away from me. I don't want to know what meth feels like. I don't want to know, like, stay away. I don't want to know what they feel like.
I'm laughing because I tell people all the time I'll never try crack because I don't want to love something so much that I'll potentially put a penis in my mouth to get some more of it.
That's a great point.
Like I used to argue with this girl I was dating who was talking about trying coke, and I was like, "You're not going to not with me, man, because I'm like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm good, but I might be a fiend. It's just waiting to come out, and I'm not. You'll see me down the block, just on my knees begging."
God. And it's not. You're funny. We're making fun of it, but it's not untrue.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people that use meth, the reason they continue to use it is they might get chemically hooked eventually, but they know what it feels like now. And a world without feeling that is so untenable to them because they haven't dealt with their problems that they have to keep using it and suck dick for more of it. I mean,
yeah, it's serious.
It's sad. It's really sad.
Damn.
Quiet.
That's crazy. One thing I always said when I was younger was I can't wait till I'm like in my 60s, 70s, and then I'm going to do meth, I'm going to do crack, I'm going to like do all these things and just like try it out once. But the more I grow up and the more I see it just destroy people, it's
I had the same joke, and I agree. I just am like, whatever. I like being sober a lot of times. I mean, I enjoy doing moderation, but I also really enjoy being sober. So, like, just as well.
The clarity, man. The clarity when you're like, especially when you're out in nature and you're on trips and you're spending time with people you really care about. Having no brain fog is indescribable compared to how it feels like otherwise.
I think it's important.
Go ahead, Zach.
We have to embody our values. Don't tell your kid that you shouldn't have all that candy. It's not good for you, but you'll sit there and you'll pound booze every night. Like if you're the dad who has a beer permanently transfixed to his hand, well, don't tell your kid to get off their phone that's always in their hand. Don't stop telling people to not do the things you're doing. You got to lead by example, not by advice, because that's what they're going to follow.
What do you think my kids do when my ex tells them, "Oh, I have so many problems, but I never have used anything in front of them. I don't hardly even drink in front of them. They've not seen me ever messed up so bad I couldn't function. Like if I've done anything drinking, I've still been fine." And she can't keep food out of her mouth, so she's gained about like a whole bunch of weight in COVID, and she's actually what you would classify as fat now. It's so fat now that I'm embarrassed to be around her for people to know that I was with her.
Oh.
And she used to be a size 2. Like, so what do you think my kids think? Like, looking at that, and you got this person saying your dad has problems. Like,
all you can do is be steady. You just got to be that steadfast voice.
I mean, I never talk bad about her to them. Because I feel
until they watch this podcast.
But no, they won't understand it. I'm not putting her down as a person. Her habits are fucking atrocious. I'm sorry, her habits are wrong and atrocious. Like, I'm not putting her down as a person when I say that. That's just like, and it's objectively she's overweight. So, but I do think that you shouldn't talk bad about your spouse, your ex-spouse to your kids. I think that's abusive to do that. So,
yeah, and we can have great discussions. Again, another topic on raising kids and things like that, navigating divorce, or even just navigating day-to-day marriage. But
yeah, that's just interesting. I mean, that seems like a good. You're married, Zach?
Yes.
I was married, and you're in a long term, right? And
yeah, supposed to be married soon, but I just, just keep putting it off, man.
I think when you get your shit together, it is easy to have a good, healthy, long-term relationship.
It really is.
You gotta have your shit together. I remember when I didn't have my shit together and being miserable and looking at everybody, other men around me, and they had the same miserableness, and I thought that's what everybody did. And now I have a relationship where, like, it's so easy to have one now.
It's very true. I have to say, like, as a whole, we're talking about alcoholism, conquering addiction, things like that. Once you figure out those things and you become who you are as a person and you're steadfast on it, everything else in your life falls into place. But we're coming up on an hour and a half here. I do need to wrap this up. So I just want to say thank you to everybody here. Let's do a little bit of a closing circle. Let everybody know what you're up to, and we'll go from there. So, Chris, just because that's how I'm seeing on the screen, Chris, you go ahead and share with people where they can find you, what you do.
Originally, I was going to try to do the dating coach thing, but now I really want to go into music. So it's changed a lot, but I still am doing a podcast called and I even want to change the name of the podcast now. It's called Call Me Daddy, and you can find it easily on iTunes, but I don't really advertise it. Me and my buddy do it. It's actually pretty good. But I'm probably going to still do a blog on dating, but I'm not going to go into dating coaching or anything like that. I'm going to start into music, try to pick up DJing and playing guitar and singing, and still work at my corporate job until that happens. But I really am I've got a lot of stuff in place now, so I'm really enjoying life now. And it was a pleasure to meet Ed and Zach. And thank you for having me on this. It was really, I think, hopefully, people can take something away from it.
Absolutely. I'm sure we've influenced some people, and that makes it all worth it, even if it's only one. It's why we all do what we do.
Yeah.
So, Ed, what do you have coming on?
I'm always working on the website. I'm finally, hopefully this month, recording the audio book of Sober Letters to My Drunken Self, so people will be able to grab that, and that'll be worthwhile. Apparently, people don't read anymore, so I need to start doing audiobooks as well. And other than that, just still doing what has worked, which is communicating my ideas, trying to be a good example for humanity, and making enough money to sustain my life doing so.
It's good stuff. Good stuff. Zach, how about yourself?
It's been cool, man. Chris, it was nice meeting you. Ed, obviously, good stuff going there. I'm in a position here where I've been sober long enough to be able to talk about this from a position where I'm like, this works. If you do this, it'll work for you. Like I said, I crushed the 400 mark and cruising, but I'm also still fresh enough to where I'm like, I'm not that far from when I was drinking. It was less than 2 years ago, and people will see me on this podcast or see the number that's next to me that keeps growing, and like, well, look how far he is. Literally a year and a half ago, I was reaching out to Ed. Hey, man, I got to figure this out. And that's me taking my thoughts and putting it into action, getting rid of ego, get rid of pride. It's like, dude, I need help. I got to lock this in. Anybody watching this needs to understand that it's cool to watch podcasts. It's cool to listen and laugh at what we're talking about. But if you don't take that information and apply it, nothing in your life will change. It's not about being a well-watched person. It's about being a person who's changing their life. And they watch podcasts like yours to be a better human being. And the only way your real life is better is if you're like, hey, I learned this in a podcast. I applied it. Here are my results. So that's kind of how I'm operating. That's why I keep the DMs open. I'm constantly putting the message out there. That's why I'm public about my journey. It's because I want people to see it and see, dude, if I can do it. I was binge drinking from 13 to 33. And now I'm 34 with 400 days sobriety under my belt. So it's totally possible. All my writing and podcasts, The Family Alpha. And if you want the private group, that's Fraternity of Excellence. And that's literally, I'm the owner, so I know I'm biased, but dudes are changing their lives. There's a lot more people in the world doing a lot of great things. And it's pretty cool to see people who are in our shoes. I want to be better. Well, we've got a group of people trying to be better. Go check it out.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. And I have both Ed and Zach's information down below. So if you wanted to join the Fraternity of Excellence, the link is down there. Also, Ed's website, which is beautiful, by the way. Love that. And I'll get some additional information in there as time goes on. But, gentlemen, this was absolutely fantastic. And, Zach, you were so true when it comes to just taking action. You can sit and listen to this all day. You can sit and listen to people complain about how messed up the U.S. is and how this isn't bad and coronavirus and being stuck inside. Or you can take actionable advice like this and continue to move forward. And it's absolutely phenomenal to have people like you, people like everybody else come on here. Just to, I guess, plug myself real quick. So on this channel, I'm going to be doing a lot of shows like this. It's going to be a transition from Instagram. For those who don't know, or maybe are tuning in for the first time, I am a dating coach myself. I deal a lot with getting people over that hump, whether it be after a divorce, breakup, something like that, or even just getting started in the dating market. And I also work a lot with long-term relationships because it's difficult. You know, you can go to pickup artists and learn how to get laid, but not a lot of people can tell you how to have a happy, healthy, long-term relationship. So that's me. That's what's going to be going on. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This was a phenomenal discussion.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for having me, man. Enjoy you.
I was fortunate to be on it. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely.